Well, I did not pull together a formal presentation, but Kyle gave a really good background on the general solid waste and how it's handled here in Ohio. I am a Kyle counterpart for Delaware, Knox, Marion, and Morrow counties. So I have the joy of working with 4 different counties, which if you know anything about those 4 counties, they vary drastically. Morrow County is a very, very small rural community where we have Delaware County, with a southern push from Columbus. So we have various needs across our 4 counties. And there were several things in the presentation that Kyle pulled together, and I really liked those key pieces that he pulled out, and you have to have all of those pieces pulled together to make it all work. So my solid waste district is very different than Kyle's, not only because of population, but how we run our programs. So my office, we're a 2-person office, myself and 1 other person. And what we do, we don't have a landfill, we don't have any transfer stations, we rely 100% on the private sector. So my job is to manage a whole bunch of contracts and make sure that those contracts get put into place and fully are functioning. So some of the issues that we have, a few of us were given a survey ahead of time on what does waste mean in your industry, and unfortunately I didn't have time to send that in, so I apologize. But to me, waste, there's many things. To me, waste is money. For my district, the way solid waste districts are funded here in the state of Ohio, we get funded a fee per ton of trash that goes into a landfill. So our goal and what we're required to do by the state is reduce the amount that goes into the landfill. So I personally look at it as trying to put myself out of a job. Now, will that ever happen? No, that will not happen, unfortunately. But so to me, it's waste. And when I was thinking about that question, what does it mean? I feel like a large portion of the residential community views waste as, oh, they don't really care. I don't want this item. They don't necessarily think about, hey, can it be reused by somebody else? Just goes into the trash. So I feel like our role as solid waste districts, is to change people's actions, okay? So we have to change how they're viewing things. It's not just education, but we really need them to change what they're doing. So some of the programs, we have a lot of the same programs that SWACO would do. We don't do them ourselves. Obviously we have other folks do them. But, recycling is a huge thing. And what we have been seeing here in Delaware County with our recycling program, what we run through our office is a recycling drop-off program. Kyle had mentioned he talked about recycling a lot. That's what solid waste districts, that's one of our main ways of keeping that stuff out of the landfill. But what we see here in Delaware County, which is really taking off quite a bit, are municipalities moving forward with franchise agreements for their communities, which would include curbside waste pickup. A lot of times it includes yard waste as well as curbside recycling. We love it when communities do that. It takes the pressure off of our drop-off program. We have bins set out throughout all of our communities for people to drop off the recycling, but obviously curbside is that much more convenient. So as communities in Delaware County are moving towards that, the convenience is a huge factor, I feel, for waste management, probably in a lot of things in our lives, but we're seeing like a tripling in our recycling rates in these communities when they do go with their curbside programs. There's a whole lot of different things. I did want to mention the program that we were doing with the May move out here at the college. I don't know the exact numbers of that, but I feel like it was a huge success with some things to 10 tons. So we don't have those large, couches and those materials. It's really, again, changing the way that people view their waste. And I feel like solid waste districts across the gamut need to kind of focus on that. And that's where the state is trying to move people. It's more education and more changing the habits of what people do. So I don't really have a lot more than what Kyle already presented because he did such a good job. But if there's questions in general, between Kyle and I, if there's any questions, I don't know, maybe everybody's kind of familiar with what goes on here in the US, maybe.
Yeah, hi, Jenna. It's really interesting to hear you talk about the area in which you're responsible, right? You've got these 4 counties, and it strikes me that you're dealing with this challenge of kind of geographical difference, right? Implementing solid waste management in these different places. And so I'm wondering, and I'd be interested to hear what Kyle might say about this as well. Where does analysis fit in? And here I'm kind of thinking about what Kyle described as a strategic priority of SWACO, right? Analysis and education. And so where does analysis fit into how you address these different counties and their different needs and their different pressures, et cetera?
All right, so again, what Kyle said is your numbers are only as good as what's reported to us. So right now, we are required by the state to collect surveys from our residential recycling programs, business and industry, on what they're diverting from the landfills. Obviously, we don't get a very good return rate, and I think that's an issue across the state, but that is what we hold as, okay, are our programs of what we're currently doing effective? We have to put together a solid waste management plan that meets state objectives and allows us to kind of tweak things to work in our district. So we have to get that approved by EPA. And in that process, we're supposed to use these annual surveys of, okay, are we meeting what our recycling rate should be? In 2014, our recycling rate in the DKMM area was 50% for residential and commercial. Now, do I think that that's a good number? I don't think we're probably quite that high. I like to think we are, but that's only based on what's reported back. So it's always what makes sense and always trying to evaluate it. But unfortunately, like Kyle said, it's only as good as the numbers you can get, and trying to tweak the obtaining good information from these businesses and building those relationships, it's always a struggle.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with what Jenna's saying. I think it's, especially from a rural and an urban perspective, they are quite different. The economies of scale drastically drop off in these settings, and I've worked in the rural areas as well. So I know it can be a super tough challenge. But yeah, I think the communication, the connection, and you got to really dedicate it to a long-term commitment of how do you efficiently collect that information, that feedback, so you can better address the needs. And working with these communities has been another big piece, I think, that Jenna's hitting on. The more that you can help them, take ownership of that and understand it, the less, stress it creates on the system, especially for directors like us. So.
And one thing that would help, is that common message for recycling. Working across 4 counties, I have 2 of my counties that are overseen by Rumpke. One is overseeing the recycling program by Mid-Ohio Recycling and Sanitation, and one is by Sims Brothers Recycling. So I have 3 different contractors with 3 different separation requirements. Plastic is a huge one. Nobody knows what plastic's recyclable. Is it 1 to 2? Is it narrow-necked containers? Is it 1 through 7? It's a confusing nightmare across those 4 counties, and having a consistent message is key.
So I live here in Delaware, and we have those leaf bags. So when they pick those up, are those getting composted, or are those going to a landfill? Because we have Price Organics in this town.
Yeah.
And so do I need to carry my leaf bags to Price?
It depends what community you're in. And so there is, what we're finding as communities move forward these franchise agreements on behalf of their communities, which is an interesting concept in itself, because what you see when a community goes with a franchise agreement, it brings the cost of those services down. So we have 3 townships that went together on a contract. They pay $12.95 a month for curbside collection. That does not include yard waste. But they get a lot of pushback. So these communities, they think they're doing something wonderful for their residents, saving them money, and there's a huge pushback because people, they don't care about the money, they want their choice. So I thought that was kind of an interesting thing. But going back to your question about your yard waste, it depends on the community. And there's ways that people are getting around, unfortunately. Sometimes it's not. If it's combined into a garbage truck, a collection truck, it can still go to a landfill. is what's kind of happening in some areas, unfortunately.
And how would I find out as a like a private citizen here? How would I find out what's going on?
I could probably tell you.
I can help with that. Jennifer Way Young, and with Keep Delaware County Beautiful, I work with Jenna. In the City of Delaware does do a really great job of composting leaves. Delaware does what they say they're going to do. I know a lot of times their yard waste will go to Price Farms Organics. I know other times, and again, I haven't really talked to them. I know I worked with a former public waste director that they had, and I know that he would work with farmers, and sometimes they would take leaves and they would put them on farm fields and things like that, and they could save themselves some money. So they do recycle or compost that yard waste that is collected here in the city. So they're true to form. So they're good.
You live in the city? Oh, okay, yeah, that's, yeah. Some communities, they are a little upset when they're separating it and putting it out to the curb, and then it gets all put into, it's, what we're finding is a little bit of a loophole, unfortunately.
All right.